folks heckling us in the chat. So thanks for being here. Drop your questions or thoughts. You can tell us you disagree with our bad ideas if you want. We have a good agenda. We're not gonna have Jake today. I know his loyal fans are devastated. It's just gonna be me and Mike. So we'll have to come with extra spicy takes in order to make up for the loss of Jake for today.
Yeah. Unfortunately, gonna be hearing more from both of us.
Okay, we have a bunch of things that we want to talk about today, so let's dive into the first topic. The first one I wanted to talk about is one I've been thinking a lot about, and I've been thinking about it because oftentimes when folks talk about the gains from AI, they say things like AI has already saved my team 10 hours a week. It's saving this person 3 hours a day or whatever it is, right? It's saving time, which is funny to me because I don't know anyone that's working less because of AI. It seems to be we seem to be very good at filling that with lots that saves time with lots of other things. So my question that I want to talk about is why does AI make people work more? And are there any instances where it's not making people work more? And I'll share a little bit of my thoughts on this, but I'd love maybe I'll just open it up to you first, Mike, and then we can dive in.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this one a lot, and I want to like pitch this paradigm for maybe why. You look at the jobs today people work the most. So like doctors, investment bankers, and I think the common thread I'm starting to notice of like why do they work so much? Lawyers is because they're essentially on call at any moment of like I need to be ready to jump in and fix things and make them better or like solve this problem. And it's forcing them to constantly be thinking about work. And AI, I think, has changed specifically software development, but a lot of roles to more of this on call status where it's like, I got to make sure my agents are cranking and doing stuff. And
Yeah.
so I need to be monitoring the situation. And that is pulling me to work more often than I'm going to sit down, crank out some code, and then like close my computer and leave for the day. And so that's got to be a big part of it is like specifically like these high level engineers who are building a lot of these AI systems, they're getting pulled in more than ever. And then also the AI industry is just moving super quickly. Anthropic went from 0 to a trillion in value in like 5 years. And the feeling of I'm being left behind, I need to jump in, like grab market share before my competitors do. They can move so much faster than they used to is like this like that's also pulling me to work more than I ever.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. I do so I listened to the head of AI innovation at Microsoft yesterday, and he cited a couple of stats. One that was so GPT-4 could automate 40 to 70% of all work tasks, which came from like a McKinsey, IBM, Gartner, Microsoft, Google study, collaboration study that was like a couple years old. So if GPT-4 can automate all of like it is knowledge work tasks or a large majority of it, then yeah, why is it pulling people into more? I think what you said was essentially like client services as a bucket, right? If you have if you serve a client, if you're a lawyer that has a client, if you're an investment banker that has a client, if you're a doctor that has a patient, you get sucked into more because the client sort of has this demand pull on your time, right? And I think demand pull, many of us have felt in our jobs where whether it's our boss or a client or someone else that's like pulling us into this vortex of work. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that y- people have now added a team of agents that are also these needy
Yes.
clients pulling them
Yes.
into more. And I think that's interesting. I think maybe the other part of that is that you have this like this opportunity cost to not working. So when you're not feeling that demand pull, you have whatever that the agent anxiety or whatever the token anxiety, whatever they call it, where you're just not you're feeling like wow, I was just producing so much output. Now I'm driving home from work, and on my 10-minute drive, I'm not producing output and the cost to that is like so much greater than it's ever been. And so I feel this like anxiety to not to like be doing more always. And that is a really I think that's a really good point. Like it's accelerating demand pull on your time. I think that's interesting. And then your other point, I think maybe to react to that around the race. And I think there is a little bit of a feeling like the last flight out of Nam, like I gotta go, keep my job or make money before the whole industry turns upside down. And that, maybe that's because of the speed of acceleration. Maybe it's because of the opportunity size, but it does feel like the rational thing might be to like not go compete against Anthropic immediately. Yet everyone is. I just I don't know. Like, why is it that everyone's signing up to go fight like generational competition too? Because it also seems like that's tough as well. But people seem to be racing to do so.
No, I don't think it's like I want to fight Anthropic. I think it's like, hey, for sure, business, like insurance paperwork is going to be way better with AI. Someone is going to do that. Yeah, might as well be me. Also, so I'm a really interesting age of I'm just young enough that I missed the golden era of tech where like the internet's like just being in, or like, mobile is just coming out, the app store, SaaS is at its peak, people are making a ton of money. And by the time I entered the workforce, you started to see like saturation of B2B SaaS. And I think from my perspective, and I imagine a lot of people around my age or younger have this feeling of if I could have been in the 2008 to 2016 era, I would be freaking rich. Like you pick an industry, you build vertical SaaS, you raise a bunch of money, and you make out like bandits. And then AI comes around, and you go, well, actually, this is what I've been hoping for: is this new technology that's going to give me the chance to move in, be the first entrant, capture market share. And so that's got to be where a lot of this is true.
Yeah, you sound. I just watched Napoleon Dynamite with my kids this week for the first time, and you sound a little bit like Uncle Rico saying if my coach told me in 1982, I would have taken state, buying a time machine to get back there and buy some land for 7 blueberries. I mean, it would have been great. We would have all been rich. And what you're saying is 20 years down the road, people are gonna say that about us. They're gonna say, "If I could have been alive for the AI era, I would be rich like my friend's dad, Mike, who figured it out and made things happen." I think that's fair. I think there is probably more opportunity for wealth creation now than there's ever been. And I think to your point, maybe the competition itself is people aren't necessarily racing for competition. It's just there is so much opportunity. So there's the gold rush of things going on. I think that's interesting. I think the other thing that's yeah, I think any technological shift creates this opening of opportunity for the why now that like is just like clearly doesn't come around very often. We feel this at Leland. There's so much change, and change is hard to navigate, but it's also change creates noise in the system. Change is hard when you're a big company to navigate, and so change creates this opportunity for entrepreneurship. It creates opportunity for existing startups that can move quickly. So I think that that's also creating this demand for more work. Maybe one observation as well that I would add is that it's also having the opposite effect on some people, which is like I think that the maybe the younger generation, not you, but maybe your peers and others have kind of rejected the idea of like getting jobs and like I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to be a YouTube creator. I want to be this. I don't want to work for the man. And I'm pretty sure AI is going to like dramatically accelerate that trend because it's like killing ambition in some ways too. Like it's like why would I want to go sign up for a 90-hour a week job? Like that sounds like a nightmare. I'm going to go start a restaurant and just like touch grass for a minute. So I think there is a little bit of like the counterculture that will emerge. It's probably some of the same people booing AI at graduation. They're just like this thing torched our job market. It's like ending the era of get a job as a software engineer and work 30 hours a week and make 150 grand out of school. And it is, it's just kind of creating noise in my system that like kind of sucks. And so I'm just going to reject it and go create an e-commerce company or I'm going to go do something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel that dichotomy within myself. So so the fun part of it is if you have been a person who likes creating, there's nothing been like AI that can just bring your vision into reality, and it's so awesome. Vibe coding can be the most exhilarating experience. I just had an idea and it exists and I can see it and I can play with it. That is so fun and all I want to do. And also, part of me mourns this era and almost wishes AI would just stop. To your point, like, man, it is a bummer that we had this awesome thing of these companies like Google that would pay people crazy salaries and they had these awesome benefits and good lifestyle and you really weren't working that much. That sucks that these awesome jobs that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people had are kind of going away and being automated with AI. And I understand the people who just like hate it, like really don't want AI to exist. for that and kind of many other reasons.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like those jobs still exist. You got to be a different caliber in order to get them, and
And shrinking,
can't be.
right? Like
Yeah,
power
maybe.
dynamic of
I mean,
software engineers.
maybe. I mean, I think there's still a lot of demand for the Jevons paradox. I think there's still a lot of demand for software creation, but I agree with you. I think there's definitely some disruption in the system that's making it less clear on how to go get a job at Google, and I don't think that's yeah. I think that's totally fine that people feel that way. Yeah,
Well, here's what it is. I think there are jobs, but I think leverage has changed. So if you are Google, you go, hey, I need so many software engineers to build and maintain all of the products that we own. And there's only a certain number of software engineers who can do it. So like they essentially write the check of what it takes for them to do it. And that's like, I want free massages and green smoothies every day and like these crazy perks. And like they have all the leverage. Google needs to do it. And so they just pay up. Now you go, hey, yeah, or I have one person who just really likes building stuff and I give them like $300,000 of tokens and they can actually do the job of three people. And if there was someone else who's willing to do it, maybe I could get so much value that they're still worth hiring. But like, I'm not as desperate for that person as I used to be. So maybe I'm not going to deal with their crap and I'm just going to not hire them or kind of be more picky with who I have.
yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think we'll see how it shakes out. I think there's definitely a world in which that leverage comes back for. I mean, certainly is like some people have that leverage still. They're getting paid $100 million to join certain companies or whatever. But I think the masses definitely don't have it for sure. That is changing, and there's a lot of people shooting out resumes and just getting no responses now, and I think they feel that. And then if you do get the job, then it's like, great, now you're going to work now you're going to work 996. Now you're going to be sleeping and living in the office. But I think there is an opportunity there that's real.
Yeah. Can I ask like a follow-up question of so yes, this is happening in the market, but if I'm listening right now, like what's the takeaway? What's the so what of like therefore
Yeah.
what do I do with my career or life?
Yeah. I think the so what to me comes back to what's the game that you're, going to play ultimately. And we talked about this earlier. Like I bike a lot or used to bike a lot and I would bike up this hill and the hill always sucked. I just got faster, right? It was always hard. In fact, in some ways it would get harder because I was better and I would push harder. And so, I think that was I was running that race and I think there's like if you're going to choose that race, well, the market is telling you better go faster. And I think that's like if you want to play that game, it's dumb to sign up for it and decide not to, but I think there's a lot of games out there. And so I think being aware of what like in fact there's probably more games than there's ever been. Like starting in e-commerce, I started a baseball company in college. It's never been a better time to start a baseball company. It's definitely better now than it was 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I started it because TikTok Shop exists. There's so much infrastructure for e-commerce businesses that there wasn't in the past. There's like these whole big affiliate product like motions that exist. So my younger brothers are crushing it, starting the same, running the same baseball company because there's just more playbooks. And that's a very different game, right? Like it's my two brothers running a company. They're not building an AI native baseball company. I hope that, well, they probably will, but it's not like core to the offering they have. And I appreciate that that's the game they are trying to play. So I think that if I'm a listener trying to figure out like what does it mean, I actually think you should totally sign up for 996 if that's something you want to go run that race. But you also should like be deliberate and intentional about it because it may not be the game you actually want to play. What would you take something else from it?
No, I think that's an awesome take and I totally agree. Okay, I want to move on to the next topic, which is a little different, but was funny enough. I felt like it was worth bringing up. So
Yeah.
it started as a post on X where someone told a story of they were pitching VCs and the VC fell asleep during the call. And what it turned into is a bunch of people sharing these funny VC, like horror stories is the wrong term, but experiences they've had where VCs do dumb stuff. So let me just read a couple that I thought were pretty funny. And then I want to dissect why this is happening. What does this mean? Okay, so someone said, I used to bring airplane desktop models to our investor pitches. A seed investor tipped the airplane back, held it vertically, and asked me why it didn't take off that way. He then took a call to yell at his wife's dentist during the pitch. Okay, another one. I pitched a VC that just recently gotten divorced, and that same night as my pitch had his first date since being divorced, and only gave me 2 to 3 minutes to talk about what I was building, and then spent the rest of the time screen sharing this woman's Instagram, showing me where he was going to take her to dinner and explain how to properly treat a woman and how to take her on a date. Mind you, at the time, I'd been happily married for 5 years with 2 kids, and then he ghosted me.
Nice.
Okay, maybe just one.
You could read these for hours.
Honestly, it is so funny. Okay, during a pitch, a prominent VC once told me the market size for global logistics was only 6 billion. My CFO's response was, "So you're saying it's smaller than the market for USB cables?" So just like really funny, kind of like bad human behavior, and I'm curious, like, why? Why
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah. Let me lead with the takeaway first, and then I want to get into some commentary on it. The takeaway from this is that your behavior matters in everything that you do. And the world is often a lot smaller than I think people realize. And sometimes you're held in check and sometimes you're not. In fact, sometimes I just feel like the whole world could use like a big brother to just say like, or a big sister, who, whoever it is, to just say like, stop doing that. Don't wear that. Don't act that way. Like someone that would just keep people in check, because the reality is some jobs have so much power and money is also often associated with them, and VCs naturally they have money, so they have power. Create incentives for no one to hold you accountable. That doesn't mean that the way you move through the world doesn't matter. So that's like a super important takeaway for me. I remember I'll tell you a funny story. When I was a sophomore in college, I got an internship at this private equity fund, and I got brought into the room by one of the associates, who to this day is one of my favorite people. And he goes, he's talking to like five interns, and he says, "Today we're going to talk about a super important topic." And I'm like, "Great!" I'm like on day 2 of my internship, and he's like, "The topic is don't be a douchebag." I was like, okay, this is interesting. And he basically talked about how a lot of people that go into private equity are just jerks and finance generally. And how and then he told this story where he was a sophomore in college. He reached out to this like, VP level person, so not like a managing director, like, some mid-level investment banker trying to get into this investment bank. And he had gone to the same school as this guy, reached out cold, was just, trying to network. He's doing the things you're supposed to do. And this guy chewed him out over email. How dare you reach out to me? I'm a VP. Reach out to the associates. Don't you know how to network? What's wrong with you? Basically just gave this poor kid like, you know, just ripped him a new one through email. And he's like, at that moment, I was like, look, it's not that serious, man. Like, you can just say no. You can just ignore me. Like, why are you acting this way? This is crazy. And then he's like, I didn't end up going into banking and certainly stayed far away from that bank. But like he, learned a lesson on just like, that was so mean. I'm gonna think about that guy forever. Well, funny enough, my friend or this associate, he ends up going to different path. He ends up getting into private equity from his path. So now he's an associate. And this fund is now interviewing for their next partner slot. And they're bringing in, a few different people. And one of them was a front runner. He comes into the office and the associate recognizes it. And it's this guy and who had chewed him out. And he goes, they're talking amongst the team at lunch and they're saying, "Does anyone know anyone or have any connections to him?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know him only through this exchange. Here's the email, like just as an FYI," and like immediately killed the process, right? The partners at the fund were like, "No chance this guy's gonna work for us. This is crazy." And it was something really small. Maybe just the guy was having a bad day, but like how you move through the world matters. And sometimes it doesn't come around to bite you like that. But my guess is that it happens more than most people realize. Like little conversations happen, VCs fall asleep, VCs treat someone poorly, and maybe no one's brave or incentivized enough to call you out on X, because it actually doesn't make sense for me as an entrepreneur to ever call a VC out because I'm trying to raise capital. They are still tools in my tool belt. But the quiet conversations, those things matter. And so treat people well is my thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Sorry. That was more of a rant than I expected to give.
No, that's awesome, and for sure the takeaway of this, which is like check yourself. I'm curious how. So let's say you are a VC, and no one has the incentive to tell me that what I'm doing is annoying. Is the answer to be self-reflective, or like how can you create a way for you to like not turn into?
Yeah. Well, not to quote a famous writer, but I will, of what we've learned about the nature of man is that as soon as they get a little bit of power, they exercise unrighteous dominion. I do think that there is something in recognizing when you're in positions of power, people treat you differently. And it's so funny that like people forget that. And it's like, oh, turns out like maybe people don't always agree with me because I'm so smart. They just agree with me because I'm the CEO and like it's smart for them to like, play their cards right. And you have to remember that. And like some people don't and some people do. I think that the one thing that I took away from a lot of those a lot of the quote tweets was that there were actually a lot of people that, maybe they're sucking up, but there were actually a lot of good experiences. And I've had a lot of good experiences with my investors who also know that, or maybe they don't even know that. They just treat people well because it matters to them to treat people well. And so I think you have to know the position of power that you're in and you have to like recognize that and I think you have to recognize the incentives at play because I feel like if you don't understand the incentives, then you don't understand that like no entrepreneur with a brain should call out VCs when they're trying to fundraise. It just doesn't make any sense. I've actually seen a couple founders that I'm like watching them put VCs on blast and they're like a pre-seed founder and I'm like, good luck raising, man. Like bad idea. Don't do that. That's like it's not smart. Complaining about the system. It's like when someone complains about not being able to get a job publicly, it's like that doesn't help you get a job. Unfortunately, I wish it did. But like saying, "Oh, no one's reviewing my resume, and I just keep not landing jobs, and like the whole system's broken." You might get a lot of attention, you might get a lot of empathy from people, but it doesn't get you any closer to someone saying like, "Oh, this is someone I really want to work with," or "I really want to." And so you got to know that. It also, I think, maybe the other takeaway for me is when you are in a position of power, speak out. Because like, man, was it awesome to hear Travis Kalanick put someone on blast, or Matthew Prince from Cloudflare, who like has taken a company public and really doesn't need to like suck up to VCs anymore. So like, good for him because I'm not going to do it because it doesn't make sense for me to do it. My job is to win. My job is not to hold people accountable. And Matthew Prince is saying, well, I've already sort of won. So like now I'm going to hold people accountable and like God bless him for that because the world needs more leaders holding people accountable. And I actually don't think, maybe this is convenient thinking, but I wouldn't say that my decision not to speak out. Like I have a really funny story about a VC that like 5 minutes into my pitch was like, "Oh, sorry, I have a really important call coming. Like 1 second," and then like went off mute and took this really important call. Clearly, like my call was less important, and there's some other funny things that went down with this particular VC. I will never say that because I'm trying to win. I don't think it's necessarily cowardice. I think it's wise from the people that work for me for me to not like create enemies out of nothing. But I hope to be someone that like can shine a light later because I think it does matter.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I remember in a one-on-one 2 or 3 years ago, one of the things you said is, "I'm so grateful that you constantly tell me I have bad ideas." And, like, what you were saying was, it's hard as a CEO because a lot of people will sometimes just agree with me, and, like, I appreciate that you often will share a differing opinion. And I remember just being impressed, and it's rare that someone actually likes to be disagreed with and, like, takes some level of self-awareness to understand that that's a good thing and, like,
Yeah.
fostering, like, an overall better outcome.
I was listening to a podcast today about Steve Jobs, and the funny thing about Steve Jobs is that if you disagreed with him, it was kind of like a if you come for the king, you best not miss type of situation. Whereas like he actually like he would fire people that wouldn't disagree with him, but he would also fire people that did disagree with him. And so like figure out how to toe the line. It's like what does that mean? Well, it sort of means like you need to be legitimate. I've experienced that with people where like the reason I respect someone that disagrees with me is not because they disagree with me, it's because they prove me wrong. And I actually like feel that you've done that with me several times. And I think that's true of like a lot of people but there's also like the opposite side of that, which is like some people are just difficult and aren't good at like proving you wrong. And then it just like sucks to work with them because they were just like they're wrong. And you have to be careful that you actually like are listening to their ideas. But I think there's a little bit of that too. That's tricky. Anyways, yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. I hope people continue to shine lights, and I think it's funny when you have accounts like VCs congratulating themselves that shine some of that light in an anonymous way because it's actually I think it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get into why I think Twitter or LinkedIn is broken, but this is one of the veins of why it is broken is that you can't have anonymous accounts and everything is like so high stakes that no one can actually speak the truth. So you can never foster real conversation in the environment that LinkedIn creates, which is partially why its feed sucks so much. Anyway, but thank goodness they're making games better because like that's what the world is more of. Okay, want to move on to another topic. Something that we have debated several times is related to AI. What is real and what is not real? What is hype? So I want to touch specifically on the vein because we have Anthropic who and OpenAI who have both filed to go public. Are we in an AI bubble right now, or they will be going public for near $1 trillion valuations, which is insane. Like I remember the first time a company ever hit $1 trillion valuation. So the fact that these companies are private and have reached that level of scale is absolutely insane. And then you look at SpaceX, which is also going public and like has an over 100x revenue multiple. And so basically like their valuation is 100 times bigger than the actual revenue they're generating. So it's either going to take 100 years for them to generate that much capital, or they need to grow extremely fast in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I think so. I think we are in a bubble. I've thought about this a lot. I think we're in a bubble, and I think AI is more real than we think as well. And so let me explain why. And I think that the thing about a bubble that's tricky is like it's clear that I guess I wouldn't say that Anthropic is undervalued. I think if anything or overvalued. I think if anything, I think they're undervalued. I think there's so much
You're buying
buying.
Anthropic's.
Yeah, I'm buying both. Like I just there's so in some ways I'm like clearly there's so much room to run. But if you were to say the definition of a bubble is like a period of time in which assets are overvalued, there's certainly assets overvalued, and then many of them will pop. So I think that's true. I think in the dot com era there was plenty of assets that were overvalued, and there's plenty of assets that were undervalued. I think it's nice that this one happens to be based on revenue, not just like user engagement or other things that were kind of being valued in the dot com era. But certainly, like I think there's assets like if you just look at some of the pre-seed seed stage valuations, they're just obscene with nothing. And it's just like the potential of AI. I do think though you're seeing revenue ramps unlike anything before. So I think there's clearly a bubble, but I think there's also clearly an insane amount of potential here. I think there's a couple things that I would maybe offer. I would love to get your thoughts on. One question I've been thinking about is like, what is this technology most like in history? Because you could compare it to a lot of like big technological shifts, and it just doesn't feel the same in any way. Like if you were to say like mobile, it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like what a cool technology. Like it's probably the most important thing maybe since the internet. Internet probably feels a little bit more important than mobile, or way more important than mobile, but like still really important shift. And I was listening to this Microsoft guy talk yesterday, and he's like, the thing that we think it compares the most to is fire, like the invention of fire, which is interesting. It's kind of hard comparison, but like I think there's like what fire represented in terms of the sequence of events. Sure, I mean I don't know if there was like the same rapid technological innovation that came after fire, so it's hard to say that like was it like he invented fire and then it sort of like stayed the same for a long time for like tens of thousands, who knows? So I just don't know if it's anything like anything, right? It's like I think it's just new, and I think the recursive improvement article by Anthropic saying I think we are very close to this actually making itself better is just it's a different thing that's like hard for humans to wrap our heads around.
Yeah, I would agree to some extent. Like it does feel so different, and we've talked about this before. Of like, uh, you're like not manufacturing a service, like you're manufacturing human intelligence, and like that's so different than like anything we've seen before. Here's where I think there are similarities. Like you look at what happened in the mobile technological wave, and there was so many apps. People kind of tried a million things, and over time we consolidated into a much smaller number of apps. But those apps became way bigger than anyone could imagine. Like,
Wait, smaller set of apps? What do you mean? There's like a million.
no, I'm saying like in 2008, like I remember my dad being like, "Look at this app where you can look at the constellations and the stars." Like,
Like
surely people
more
aren't going to
apps
use it.
today? There has to be 100 times, 1,000 times the number of apps from back then.
No,
So
like I'm if you're talking to someone in 2008, they're convinced you're gonna have an app for everything. There's an
there's an
app
app for that. Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
And what
You
ended up
don't actually use those in the same way. Okay,
is like if you look at someone's screen time, they spent 6 hours on
got it.
like six different apps. And that's it.
Yeah,
It's not it's an app for an idea.
yeah.
It's everyone just decided to be on TikTok, all day. But then the other thing that's true is way bigger than anyone anticipated. Like if you would have said to someone in 2002, like, hey, in the next 10 years, people are going to be spending like half their waking hours on a phone, they like wouldn't believe you. Like they just could not fathom that it was like that impactful on human behavior and society. And so I think both are true. Like a lot of companies like how we think about what AI will mean and a lot of like instantiations of it are probably totally off base and
Yeah.
will absolutely die. And then also like what it means for society or like the consolidation. Like there's for sure patterns we've seen before.
I don't know. Maybe. I think well, tell me this. One of the things I was reflecting on is the critiques of I think are all mostly wrong or solvable, like in the process of being solved. Let me give you an example. They'll say, "Oh, AI," like let's say the haters say, "Well, AI hallucinates." Okay. Do humans hallucinate? Like, do humans make stuff up all the time? Like, probably more than AI does at this point. Okay. Well, the haters say AI has bad memory. Okay. Well, like, do humans have perfect memory? No. Is AI's memory getting a lot better? Yes. The haters say, I mean, there's like, never ending this. The haters say that AI can't have good judgment. Okay. Well, let's like, do humans have amazing judgment? Like humans we've been like, addicting ourselves to substances and to like making tons of short term trade off. Like we have like the worst judgment. And is AI's judgment getting better? Yes. So they say, oh, haters say that it doesn't have taste because it's just a conglomeration of like what they've seen before. Okay, isn't that like what most is from humans too? Like, aren't we all just kind of triangulating ideas from what we've seen before and then pushing the boundaries a little bit? And isn't AI capable of doing that too? And so I think I just go down the list of like the things AI is not capable of yet, or is like, maybe the things that the doubters believe in. And it feels like they're all going to go away.
Now, what about like humans can't be responsible for like their output, or you can make a human responsible for it? I guess here's the situation I'm describing. You need a lawyer, and like yes, humans can be wrong, but like if my human lawyer is wrong, I can leave a bad review, I can sue them, I can do something about my lawyer being wrong. If
Yeah.
AI is my lawyer and it is wrong, there's nothing I can really do about it. It's like, actually, it's my fault that I
Yeah.
didn't care about it. And like, how does that change?
Yeah. Okay, so culpability. Well, I think there's a couple things here. One would be how far away are we from people being sued for not using AI? Because I think that's coming pretty soon. Like
Interesting.
if my doctor prescribes something to me and hasn't checked AI, I'm a little nervous about that. Because AI is actually pretty dang good at diagnosing things based on like important symptoms. And I think a physician plus AI is significantly better than, and I'm just saying it, I'm sure there's data that backs this up. And then like how much longer, how many more years before if you drive a car, you are actually like held liable because it's just a risk to humanity. So that's what I'm nervous about is like I think we're gonna be in a world where like the culpability is gonna come in when you're not using it, not the other way around.
So like you see a world where
Responsible, but, like, I would say, like, I think it's gonna be way safer, way better, and so, maybe it's the companies that produce it, I don't know. Yeah, it's scary, I mean, I'm not saying it's, like, ideal, but I think people are so bad at driving. Like, I got cut off, like, 3 times on my way to the office. Like, man, it'll be great when no one drives. Like, when it's all in an ecosystem that's talking to each other and is faster and safer and better in every possible way.
Okay, wait. Let me ask you this though. The techno optimist in me is like totally agreeing with you. And then like the realist in me is saying, as a society, how hard is it going to be for us to change behavior in that meaningful of a way? So like maybe an AI judge is actually like way better than a human could ever be because it can pull all of the law, all of the decisions that have been made. It's not biased to race or gender or whatever. It just here's the law and here's what you did, and I've made a decision. How realistic is it that we say, okay, by judges, like AI is going to be the arbiter of truth? Like that feels so unlikely to happen in my lifetime that people are
Right?
willing to.
Yeah.
It's like we still have fax machines. Like fax machines have been obsolete as a technology, but like there's just process and people and whatever that take forever. Or like maybe AI could be so impactful in the healthcare industry, but like HIPAA is just going to make it hard to get the right data and permissioning and whatever to actually drive like meaningful outcomes.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you that things always take longer to connect to the physical world or connect to everything at 100% than most of us expect. Yet, like think how fast AI has changed and improved. Like, and if it starts making itself better, and it actually does connect to the physical world. I mean, we'll have this conversation when it's folding our laundry, I guess is the maybe the answer. Because if it can't fold my laundry, it's not driving me to California yet. But I do think that there are like I think that what I would expect is I would expect humans to agree on principles, almost like the Constitution, right? Like humans at the constitutional level said, here's a set of principles that we want to govern ourselves. And right now, the best way to interpret it is to hire a bunch of people that are judges or have juries or have a Supreme Court or whatever to like interpret the principles that were laid out by the founding fathers. I would guess that like we are going to be at first principle level where humans are deciding on the principles that AI is like interpreting or governing by in different ways. Like there's probably a level of like safety or security and speed and all of these things that go into like setting the speed limits and the requirements for like how the robo taxis will drive. But like the incident rate will be so like it'll just be something that we all buy into because it'll have to be so much safer than what it is today, right? It's like, okay, well, either we buy into the system that one person dies at every million trips versus the one person dies every, to 300,000 trips. And then it's going down and down and down. And like when it does mess up, like it probably was because some human did something stupid. I think it's just like the level of precision is just going to keep increasing at the same, like the level of precision will probably go up faster than it'll take than the time it will take to actually get into our systems. And so by the time we finally pass the law that self-driving is everywhere, it'll probably be like a long time and the technology will probably be pretty good because it already is pretty dang good.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so now let's go to the therefore what? So we're
Yeah.
we're in we're kind of in a bubble, but like it's gonna change the world. I'm listening to this call. What do I do given that information?
Yeah, I think it goes back to some of the things we talked about. I think it's learn how to be a first principles thinker because I think that's how we're going to approach a lot of things. And I think a lot of my life will be governed by first principles I provide to AI that understands more context than me, but then I can help it learn the frameworks for making principles. It's like when I loved taking econ classes because I didn't have to memorize anything and I suck at memorizing things. Like I suck at memorizing history,
Yes.
but I'm really
But you
good at
like
learning like works, concepts.
yeah.
Like that's where you're going to get like we're all going to be good at understanding frameworks and concepts and defining those. I think that there's like, the what the world looks like in 5, 10, 15 years is basically just like a fun conversation that doesn't really mean anything, I don't think. I think it does mean that like if you just say what does it mean? I think it would be get comfortable with change because change is coming and it is already happening and like stop mourning the old era because like it's over and teach your kids how to navigate change because change is going to be the only constant. I remember this study that said like the shelf life of skills, like the McKinsey study, like the shelf life of professional skills is like 5 years. Well, like get get ready
Make
for it to
make
be
it
like
5 days, give me
yeah,
5 weeks.
yeah, exactly. So get comfortable with that. I don't know. What do
Yeah,
you
that
think?
that makes a lot of sense. I also think there's probably something to be said about, like and we've talked about this before, but where am I investing my time in getting good? And this goes to the first principles, but, like, maybe the higher level idea is, like, what do I think is gonna be mattering in the future? And, like, what do I need to be developing in myself that is going to continually matter?
Yeah.
There will continue to be humans, and my ability to interact with humans, and as we talked about at the start, like, don't be the worst and, like, treat people well. Like, some of those things aren't going
Yeah.
away, and in fact, maybe mattering more and more. It's kind of like all the investors who said, my second order thesis of what AI is going to do to society is that airlines are going to crush it because in person interactions are going to matter so much more. And so that's where I'm investing. Like those types of things might be worth investing in.
All right. Yeah, it's interesting. So be nice to people. Be nice to AI. You never
True.
know. All right. That was a weird way to end. Thanks for joining everyone. This is episode 11. Thanks, Mike. Good talking to you, man.